I just had shots fired on the corner of Ingram and Mesa Drive. So Charlie 37 shots fired. Black truck. Channel 210-3 for shots fired at Mesa Drive at Ingram. Channel 210-3. 532. The shots came from the house on the corner of Inglewood. There was a gentleman in a tank top in the front yard. Black truck took off westbound on Inglewood.
All right, everybody is here. I love it. I love it. So this is a little bit different than we usually do the podcast. We do them in person. And in this one, I've got the tier 1, I guess I would say, special operators of mental health, right? These are the top tier DevGru women that keep us sane, thank God. So real quick, if you could, I'll have you introduce yourselves with us, Allison, Katie, Lauren, and Brianna. So, Allison, you want to go first and let us know kind of your background?
Yeah, thanks, Manny. That was so sweet of you to introduce us so kindly. It's interesting what you probably say behind our back, but it's fine.
I say it to your face too. Don't worry. Ask Lauren.
Okay, so I'm a licensed independent social worker in Ohio, and I'm also licensed mental health clinician in Arizona, Texas, and Kentucky. I own the largest mental health agency in Ohio that specializes only in first responders and military, as well as their family. And we serve 6 additional states. EMDR trained. I'm a spouse of a firefighter. I'm a former canine handler on a search team, and I created an a program called the Neck Up Checkup program, where we are preventively stopping suicide within our police and fire departments, and it's pretty amazing. So I also am the area DEA clinician for the Detroit division, covering Michigan and Ohio. So that's me.
So are you the leader of
checkups? Sorry, they're available for, she does them how often?
Neck Up checkups are annual. Most departments do once a year.
Your training though. Your training.
Oh, my training. I try to do it a few times a year.
Yeah, and that's available for other clinicians to take. Sorry, Manny.
No, that's okay. So you're the leader. Now it's my I don't know if I didn't hear you, but you're going to get your PhD, correct?
Correct.
How far along are you?
3 classes in.
That's it. Oh, not almost done.
No,
I'm
in the beginning. I got 2 small kids, and my husband works shift work, so it's 1 class at a time.
Well, he's a firefighter, so let's just call it what it is, a second responder. So
sure.
Okay, so we'll move on to Lauren. How about that?
All right, my name is Lauren Goldbach. I am a licensed clinical social worker in Gilbert, Arizona. I have a practice called East Valley Trauma Counseling in Gilbert, and I specialize in police and fire. I'm a certified clinical trauma professional and a emergency responder and public safety certified clinician, and my main training and focus is in neuroscience. I am also on the advisory board of Pistol, and have been for a number of years. Very big fan of the work that we do. And that's pretty much me. I'm currently a solo practice. I had 5 under me at one point, and I really admire Brianna, Dr. Kuhlman, and Allison, because never again. So it's probably just going to be me till the trumpets sound. So thanks for having us, Manny.
Oh, thank you guys for coming on. Okay, so Katie, how about yourself? I love it. I love seeing Katie. I don't get to see her enough.
Oh, I know. I'm excited to be here. We've been planning this for a bit. So I'm looking forward to this. So my name's Katie. I'm a licensed psychologist. I practice in Arizona, but I'm also licensed in California and Hawaii. So I'm picking the states with the best weather for my tax deductible vacations. But I also have SIPAC, so I'm able to practice in 40 plus states across the country. I have a group practice, as I mentioned, in Scottsdale. And so we're first responder focused entirely. Everything that a police psychologist does, from pre-hire, pre-employment evaluations, fitness for duty evaluations, IMEs, counseling, critical incident response, wellness visits, you name it, we can probably find someone who does it. I'm also board certified by the American Board of police and at the American Board of Professional Psychology as a specialist in police and public safety psychology. I'm a core faculty at the Washington DC Metro, oh my God, DC Metro Police Leadership Academy, which is an academy for law enforcement officers at the captain and lieutenant level internationally about twice a year. And I serve as the clinician for the DEA's Phoenix division.
That's a lot. And that's why you're tier 1 operators, in my opinion. Like SEAL Team
Whatever
6.
you say.
Yes. So, I mean, that's a lot of letters and a lot of accomplishments. You should be proud. Everybody should be proud of it. So the last person, so aside from Allison, who I'm just meeting today, in the police world and probably the fire world and military, there's something called the FNG. Have you gals heard of it? By Katie's smile, I'm guessing you have. So I will designate Brianna the FNG. So she's the fucking new gal. All right. So we'll save her for last. Brianna, if you want to do a quick intro. I see you nodding your head. So I probably, when I see you, I'll probably take some shit. But it's okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Thanks for having us, Manny. I'll be the new girl. That's all right. So I'm Brianna. I am a licensed professional counselor. I practice primarily in Arizona. I'm also licensed in Colorado, and I'm finalizing my license for California. I've been in practice for about 13 years. I've worked in many different areas, but I now own my own group practice. So it is Northern Lights Therapy. We have 3 locations, 26 clinicians on board and growing. I am trained in brain spotting and accelerated resolution therapy. I'm also a clinical supervisor, a guest speaker, and then I do wellness events for local areas. So I really try and push for rural areas to get the services that they need. My practice focuses on birth all the way up through adults. So I specialize with first responders and complex trauma, but we cover all ages. And then prior to becoming a clinician, I was involved in my own kind of first responder world. So I was a detention officer for many years. And then you name it, my family was working in it. So any capacity, whether homicide, SWAT, dispatch, fire, military, I was absolutely thrown into that world from the day I was born. So I bleed it, I believe in it, and now I'm here to help it. So thank you.
I love it. I love it. You gals are amazing. I got to tell you, I gave it thought over the time of us putting it together. And, you know, a lot of times people will say, you know, Pistol did this or Pistol did that, or these guys and gals did this. But the only reason we're together, just so you know, is because of a doctor and therapists. But you should know for Katie, and I think I told her this when I met her many years back now. If I don't, especially for Katie, the way I grew up, we respect the person and not the title. So if I forget to refer to Dr. Katie, it's probably on person because I got a lot of respect for each and every one of you. And even though you would say, sir, ma'am, when you get that close to somebody, you usually call them by their first name, or in some cases, asshole, like I've been called. So I apologize in advance if I forget to call you doctor. So
Manny, the day that you start calling me doctor is the day that I know you no longer respect me.
There you go. I love it. Or the other princess, right? I think that was.
Yes, I'm not wearing my tiara.
Yes, which you should be. Which actually, I will be buying one for the back set, out of respect for you. I think we have a Labubu for Lauren. That's the new thing. So
What the hell? Okay,
you don't know what a Labubu is. Just go with it, Lauren. Just go with it.
I'll take it. You should get one.
Yeah, I'll get you one. So real quick, before we do this intro, it was actually Katie, I believe, that I'm not sure how this all came to pass, but Katie had come together and wanted to do this. So Katie, do you want to kind of go with the intro and the purpose of this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it was my idea. This was really the birth of the 4 of us kind of talking. We consult with one another, we vent to one another, we're kind of each other's support system, I think, as first responder clinicians. So, you know, when one of us is having a tough day, we talk. I was dealing with a line of duty death about 2 months ago, and these girls, you know, were here for me to vent and to support. So we've been talking about this for a bit because I think the 4 of us feel very protective over first responders. And, you know, over the past couple of years, the whole topic of of officer wellness has been like this like sexy new thing that everybody wants to do. And some people do it with good intentions, and some people do it because they see dollar signs. And we feel an obligation, ethically, morally, and I think legally too, to stop the spread of misinformation, to provide some education, and just kind of, provide some information to both clinicians and to first responders on, just the quick like 411 of what do you need to look out for? What do you look for in a therapist? What does all of this stuff mean? We see so much stuff on social media, posts from, I call them like the LinkedIn influencers that are trying to make a name for themselves. And really it's on the back of other people's trauma. Folks who are sharing their own trauma as a way to feel good about themselves or as therapy, but vicariously traumatizing other people without any solutions. We've seen a huge influx in coaching. And so we just want to put everything out there as objectively as possible.
I love it. So in full transparency, I've been banned from TikTok for talking shit to internet cops who feel that trauma is a way to get likes and clicks and is a second source of income. So I don't think you touched on that. So this is very close to my heart, and I've had some discussions about that. People using pretend trauma, or, I had a bad day at work and I'm going to play sad music and you're going to like my post. So I feel you deeply. I just speak a lot, maybe louder than I should. But I did win my appeals, Katie. So I am back on TikTok and every appeal has been beaten. So
That's fantastic.
no problem.
The four of us are admins of a Facebook group called Clinicians Specializing in First Responders as well. That's how we all kind of came together, and we have a chat through that. So any clinicians watching this who would like to join, you do have to be vetted, but it's on Facebook.
Pretty
Yes.
amazing. Brianna and I think, both started a group at the same time. And I think it was Brianna, or maybe it was Lauren. And then we just merged, and we have over 500 clinicians now. Around the world that connect, and we do monthly networking meetings for free, and it's a great resource, right? Because they're like Dr. Kuhlman is saying, or I'll call you Katie, that new things are popping up all the time, and some are good and some aren't. And so we want to debunk that. We want to kind of just, we're all very direct, and we're going to do our best to give the best information so people have the right information.
I love it. I love it. And just before I ask my first question for you gals, full transparency. So 3 of the wonderful women we do refer out for pistol, and we do so because they've been vetted, and I don't know that we have kind of a mission, but part of what our balance is we remain true to who we are. So if I'm an asshole, I'm an asshole. We're going to call it like we see it. And that's exactly what these 3 women, and I'm almost guaranteeing that Allison is the same way. We need to be told and slapped to our face. So again, many thanks for putting this together. If you guys, I got some questions if you gals are ready.
Bring it.
Dude.
The FNG said bring it. So here it comes. You ready?
Sure.
So who is a therapist?
So honestly, that's probably where people just start to get stopped right before they even start therapy, is the search, understanding there's initials. If you're looking at any of our names up here, you'll see a whole bunch of initials. And so people get really freaked out, not knowing who do I go to, where do I go to, what am I looking for? I really try and help make sure people understand the different options out there and the different levels of care that they can provide. There's some good, some bad, and it depends on your situation. So you're always going to have your interns. Those are ones that are still in school learning. They're great for basics, but they're still learning. Then you're going to have your associate level clinicians, whether they're social workers or counselors. Those are licensed. They're graduated with their masters, but they're still under supervision working towards their independent. And most places have a minimum 2,500 clinical hours to even start to be considered for independent. So it's a long process that most of us have to go through to get to the end level of our career. After you leave with the associate, then you're into your independent clinicians and social workers. Those are typically the ones that most people look out for. That is what Allison, Lauren, and myself all are. We are at the master's level, independently licensed clinicians. Different states, you'll see some different initials that come from that, but those are independent. We've gone through all of our supervision and are good to practice on our own. Then you also have marriage and family, same kind of setup as social workers and counselors. After that, you get to the people like we have with Katie, the ones that went, and Allison, who's going through the program, and they've gotten their psychology, or they are on the psychiatry side. Psychiatry is going to be your medication management, or you have your psychiatric nurse practitioners now that you're seeing more and more common that can do the medication. Those are the only people that are going to be able to give you meds.
Drug
so if
dealers.
you want meds, don't go to us as therapists. We can't give them to you. We can refer you out. We will work with your clinician or your psychiatrist, but we can't give them to you. Your psychologist, some of them, like Katie, I know, will see clients on a counseling level, but then those are also the ones that are going to do your evaluations. A lot of times you're fit for duty, return to work status. Some of that stuff's going to be state dependent though. So like Allison's based out of other states. She's licensed here. Our board requirements are some things where certain states are not. So your FMLA paperwork here in Arizona, we are not allowed to complete those as masters. Other states allow it. So always check with your providers too to just see what their kind of levels are. They should be willing to provide that to you and be honest. And make sure you're getting where you need to go. Because if you want an evaluation or return to duty, I can't do that for you. So I'm going to refer to somebody like Katie. So we want to make sure that we're going through that. As Katie brought up, all of us have seen the peer coaches, the life coaches, the peer help, the peer support. You have peer support within departments. I think that's amazing that we're seeing more and more departments putting them together. Most officers are going to want to go talk to them, but there's some differences with how you can talk to them and what they can keep quiet. And I'll let that kind of go with the next question. But then they're going to be your basic care, just checking in. After you move past that to life coach, they don't have sometimes any degrees. Life coaching is just a certification. So you can get out of high school, go take a quick online program and be considered a life coach. And so they don't have as extensive training. They don't have as deep as understanding. A lot of times the modalities. So they're trying. Some have good intentions, some don't, but they're not going to be able to give the level of care that a clinician actually can. They're great for some situations. So this is where it's really important. What are you looking for in a counselor or in help? And then trying to find what that avenue kind of looks like. Also cost, insurance, all of those variables play a role as well. Departments who they'll refer out to is sometimes some of those, but you want to pay attention to initials, to credentials, and ask questions. Make sure you're understanding what they can do, make sure you're vibing with them, make sure that you are actually going to get a type of care that you need, and it's not just somebody to go see, because you're opening up your private self to them. So you really want to make sure that you're comfortable opening up your deep, dark secrets to somebody.
Right. Well,
Also,
go ahead.
every state has a licensing board.
Mm-hmm.
And what we recommend is, check that person's license out. I have been on the board of fire service psychology to nominate and award different clinicians for things. And I go on their state board and I look at, have they had any discipline? Like what happened with that? Was it really egregious or not? Because clinicians are going to be like, hey, guess what? I did this, 5 years ago, most of them. And so that's another piece is look up their license too, which we'll probably get into a little bit more of.
Yeah. Well, so what I was going to say was when I was after my critical incident, everything you said sounds wonderful now, but at the time, the only thing I heard them say was you have to go see a psychologist, and the first thing I thought of was Bob Newhart, and I was not going to lay on that couch. So when I did look, and my wife did look, we went to the yellow pages, and I saw all these letters. It would look like alphabet soup, and I couldn't tell what was what and who was where and whatever. So that was one of the things as we were building on Pistol, we wanted to definitely bring that up to speed. And I'm glad, like I said, I can't thank you enough, because this is further going to explain that, because I didn't have this video. My wife didn't have this video or this podcast to look at. And a whole nother podcast can be done on the doctor they sent me to, who I will name at one point, but it'll probably be on my deathbed. So anybody else have any?
You got to remember, Manny, departments only knew what they knew, right? And so we have come light years now to be able to make change. And so if somebody or a department is using, I'll call a not great clinician, they have a plethora of opportunity now to change that. And you guys at Pistol are helping change that culture. So thank you for doing that.
Well, we're trying. So, and just so you know, Allison, because you don't know this, but my department sent me to I believe it was a counselor. She was in a back room. This is a true story. She was in a back room of a shoe store that I had to walk through to get to her office. And when I explained the screams, she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to just murder people. And she's like, you should probably go for a drive. And I was like, okay, sounds reasonable. So that was my very, very first introduction to any kind of mental health professional.
Mm-hmm.
And even this many years later, we still get calls from agencies who have no idea. They're like, hey, just go over there and talk to that person. They'll let us know when you're ready to come back to work. So I think Brianna hit on that. As far as like, I don't know if I missed it. I don't think I did, but just the different roles and education, because when they said see a psychologist, immediately I think I'm schizophrenic. They're going to send me this and I'm going to go see a drug dealer. And it wasn't until I saw my psychiatrist and they were giving me drugs. And so I think, Brianna, correct me if I'm wrong, you did touch on the education part, right? And how they vary, right?
Yes.
I did hear that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Honestly, and when it comes, I think mental health terms get used kind of interchangeably, and a lot of people just assume therapists are psychologists, and they don't see and understand that master's level is actually where your clinicians are. And then you have psychologists that are typically more evaluation and assessment based. Some do offer counseling, but the bulk of them are more evaluation and assessment. So when you hear people go, oh, just go see a psychologist or go see a psych, that's usually how it's phrased. The first word that comes to mind is psychologist. And so people automatically have that internal kind of conflict. So we really want to make sure it's a better understanding that it's master level. We're clinicians, we're counselors, we can here to help you. We still have a level of education. I've actually had people call me like, we are not a psychologist, so you don't know. We actually go through very extensive training to do the counseling, but it's ask questions. It's not always going to be about the initials. If you're not looking for meds, because that's only one type, that's your psychiatrist. Anything else, do it more off of, are they right for you? Are they based off of what you're needing? Does their personality match? Does their style match? Things like that are going to be way more beneficial for your actual therapy benefits and the progress you make than just the initials and the type of training. That comes secondary. The rapport building and that therapeutic relationship is going to be your biggest indicator of success in therapy. So if you don't like your clinician, change them. It doesn't matter their initials. Get up, go find somebody new. You may have to research, you may have to ask around, but just ask and speak up for yourself, no matter what.
I love it.
There, Manny, there's also a link on my website that we can provide at the end, or our tech can add it on, that explains each of the licensure levels. Master's level, doctorate level, MD. So we'll provide that at the end.
Awesome. Well, I will tell. Go ahead.
Sorry, every time, Manny. And I think that the other biggest difference Brianna hit on earlier is therapists and psychologists, we are licensed, right? Just like a doctor is licensed, we have a license.
Yeah.
Coaches, these health coaches, life coaches, they are not licensed. So there's no governing board for any type of coach. I know people who have no education or experience and they call themselves a coach. And that's another huge difference. So, when you're recognizing, and like Brianna and Lauren are saying, when you want to know what these levels are, who does what, understand the vast difference between you have confidentiality built in, you have HIPAA protection with a licensed provider, than you do with a coach. And that is very important, especially to our individuals with their sensitive information.
Very, very important. Katie, anything?
These girls are singing it so perfectly.
Isn't it great? It's like music to my ears.
Yeah, I'm like, why am I here? No, it's perfect, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing is the regulation, right? That like we have to go through all of these steps to go through schooling to get a license. It's not an easy thing. I was in school for 10 years, plus another year of practicing before I was allowed to practice independently. Like, it's a long time. And regulation is there to protect the consumer from bad practitioners. Yeah, and coaches have zero regulation. Some don't even take a certification class. You can literally open an LLC tomorrow and call yourself a coach, open up a business checking account and start bringing in money and charging people $300 an hour. You can do it.
I
Anyone
didn't know
can do
that.
it.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Absolutely. And the
Manny
danger,
the coach, a coach Manny.
I'm a life coach.
the danger with that is that if you harm a client, there is no recourse. There's no
Yep.
malpractice. There's no board to go to. There is no one you can complain to. You could sue them. I don't know where you'd get, but there is no regulatory board.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
a coach, for example, can promise that they will keep what you say in confidence. They can promise that to you. I heard a coach one time saying that we follow HIPAA. You can say that all you want, but as a healthcare professional, you are not obligated. You're not covered by HIPAA. It doesn't make any sense. But you can promise to keep things confidential, but there's zero recourse. And I know that we'll get to there in a bit, but privileged conversations is a huge thing.
Yeah. Well, if I was a coach, it would be what I could remember to testify to. And I can't remember anything anyways. So we're all good there. And I will tell you gals that the way I gauged people's education was based on how big their desk got. Because it seemed like the more education they had, the bigger the desk they had. So if I walk into somebody's office and they have no desk, I'm going to talk to them before I talk to some, I don't know, some guy giving me some test with a desk that's the size of a room. But all right, so I digressed. I'm going to go to the next question. Off that, so what does peer support differ with in that? How does that differ? And I think, I don't know, any of you can answer that one.
I mean, Brianna kind of mentioned it a little bit. I mean, a number of us work with peer support teams and train peer support teams or advise them. And peer supporters are trained personnel of a public safety agency. Typically, they go through a 40-hour training to learn about various mental health problems, active listening, how to talk to people about substance use. And they serve as a really good, I think, kind of like a warm handoff and as a first response for police and firefighters. So they're the ones that show up after a critical incident. They're the ones that are checking on the person who just had a death in the family, who went through something a couple of weeks ago. They do outreach. People can come talk to them. And most states actually extend the concept of privilege that is given to mental health professionals to their trained peer supporters. Now, I think one of the things is you need to look at state legislation regarding peer support, if that's the case. And every state has a different definition of what peer support is. Some recognize kind of organizations that are not affiliated with a department as they can be peer supporters. But Arizona, for example, in order to be considered truly a peer supporter, it has to be attached to an agency. But they keep things confidential. They can only release information if it's a harm to self, others, or disclosures of any child abuse, just like therapists. The difference, though, is that they have an obligation to report sometimes policy violations, but also crimes. So, if you're beating your wife, you probably shouldn't tell your peer supporter. You can tell a therapist, we won't do anything about it.
Great.
But
what if I'm being abused, though? Should I tell someone? Like,
please
blink
do.
twice?
You should absolutely. You can come talk to us.
We would help guide you, and hopefully you would make a report or something.
Yeah.
But most of the time, in most states, DV is not something reportable by clinician.
Yeah, I just don't want you guys talking to IA. I'm just saying, like,
No,
whatever policy violations.
As Katie stated with peer support, the privileged communication, what's fascinating, so in my state, in my main state in Ohio, privileged communication was not given to peer supporters till 2023. And there's certain regulations that they have to follow and continue in eds every few years, but there's no one monitoring that. Right. And so we're actually getting more litigation throughout the country on people getting subpoenaed in peer support, because peer support is supposed to be one-to-one, And if you're in a critical incident debrief, you're always supposed to have a clinician, and that helps do that umbrella coverage of HIPAA. And a lot of departments are getting really lax on that. And unfortunately, it's going to bite them in the butt if they're not careful.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want reference to that, check out it's Huffing versus the city of Boston. That's one of the major cases right now that's impacting this.
You guys, by the end of this, I'm going to give you guys all designated call signs. And I think Katie's is going to be Sierra 1. Sierra 1. So, all right. So you're talking all this legal stuff. Can you kind of, and maybe I'll just pick on Lauren, the mandating reporting, the confidentiality. I think we touched on that. Did you want to chime in on that with, the ethics and all that good stuff?
Thanks, Manny. I think one of the things that sparked this podcast is that there's been a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of misinformation currently in our circle in Maricopa County about what mandated reporting is and is not. So mandated reporting is very different from confidentiality. A mandated reporter, that's an ethical and legal obligation for certain professionals like teachers, therapists, first responders, and sometimes any adult, if you look at the Arizona Revised Statute in particular, has a duty to report any known abuse of a child, or a vulnerable adult, meaning someone who's, say, mentally incapacitated or elderly and can't fend for themselves. So we have a legal obligation to report if a client says to me, I was, and this happened when I was working inpatient psych. The other day when I got high with my 14-year-old. Okay, gosh, now that is a phone call for me to make now to the Department of Child Safety to investigate this. Now I have a legal obligation to report that. Or if I know that you are aware of a child being abused and you're not doing anything about it, those we have a mandated duty to report. But that is where it stops. Mandated reporting is only referring to abuse of a vulnerable adult or a minor, someone under 18. It doesn't go anywhere beyond that. And the misinformation that has been most, I think, confusing to a lot of departments that's been disseminated recently is that therapists are mandated reporters. Most adults are mandated reporters for those instances. What is not a mandated reporting situation in therapy is literally everything else. Now, what we do have to report is imminent danger to self or others. And that's kind of important to talk about as well, because I think this is something that is very concerning to a lot of first responders that come to us. If I have to petition you because you cannot keep yourself safe or you're going to go blow up a building, and that petition is accepted and you now are held for 72 hours at CBI or where is it, downtown where they take the people in Arizona, I am required by law to keep that private. In fact, I would lose my license and be up for a lawsuit if I even called your wife and said I had you petitioned. Without your written, explicit permission, I cannot disclose anything that you tell me in session. If you are abusing alcohol or drugs, if you are cheating on your wife, if you are thinking of killing yourself but can be keeping yourself safe, that will never be disclosed. That would be, I would be in a lot of trouble if I gave that information out. And to take it a step further, privacy laws in the US, federal privacy laws, are very specific about substance abuse. So when I am sharing your records because you ask me to for, say, workman's comp, and those are situations where we would share the records in here. When you come to us, we don't share records with your department or a diagnosis or anything, because that would be a privacy violation. If you disclose substance use in session, I have to have explicit written permission to disclose that part of your record. Otherwise, that part of the record remains sealed, even if you ask me to share the rest of the record. So there are incredibly stringent privacy laws that dictate how we operate, that are not extended, as Katie had mentioned, to a coach. I think I covered most of what I wanted to say about that.
Well, let's give another example for a second. Let's say that a client is meeting with a therapist and the therapist is a little worried. Maybe the client is experiencing some anxiety and depression. That therapist cannot call the chief or the captain or the sergeant or whoever and say, hey, I'm worried about Manny. Not okay. Ever okay. Now, again, if the client was said, hey, I have I have a gun, I'm ready to kill myself. Again, we still wouldn't really call. We do proper measures to keep them safe with their acuity level. And it would be up, I always leave it up to the member or the professional to be able to make those calls if need be, or get them off track or whatever is needed to go.
Yeah.
If a provider, and I say mental health provider, ever breaks confidentiality, one, run the fuck away. Sorry, run away.
Never say
Two,
sorry for that word.
sorry, I don't know if it's allowed. We do what we want, right? And two, they should be reported.
Absolutely, they should be reported. And on the heels of that, I'm glad you said that, Allison. Let's say I do have to do a mandated report. If a client comes in and they tell me, I'm looking at child porn and I've got to report this now, or they're to the proper authorities, right? And that would be the governing authorities in my city or in the city where the crime was committed if they're abusing a child. I still can't tell your department that. That would also be a license losing moment. That goes from me to the authority that's responsible and nowhere else. So departments are never, ever entitled to any information that you do not explicitly in handwriting sign off on us disclosing. Everything discussed in session is private, including the mandated reports that we might have to make.
So with that said, the mandating reporting, that doesn't mean that you'll tell my department I'm coming to therapy.
Not even that.
Not even that. So
Under
what
Craig
about
in Arizona, they'll know. Well, the peer support will know, but the departments, sometimes it's kept confidential. It depends on the city.
what
I'm sorry,
about
man.
these? What about, I don't know if I think you guys alluded to it. What about like these coaches you're talking about that are going around blabbing, talking, and I've seen them more recently in times go on TV and, hey, I know this person.
Yeah.
You know,
I've actually, I've had a couple of clients who have previously seen a coach who specializes in first responders who talks about other clients that they see. And again, there's no regulatory board. There is no recourse. Katie and I have experience with one who, in a recent situation where a person was injured, was talking to fellow coworkers about their relationship with this person who had been injured. And they had come to me and asked, how do we file a complaint? And the answer is you don't. A life coach has no
liability.
expectation of privacy and no liability, no regulatory board. We have an incredible amount of liability attached to our licenses. You would not believe the way our licenses are governed by our licensing board. If we step out of line even a little, we are disciplined and at risk of losing our licenses. So mandated reporting only means I have to report harm to a child or vulnerable adult to the proper authorities and nobody else. It means
Basically,
nothing.
it's like any job. Even if you're not a cop sitting on my couch and you work at the local grocery store and you come in and you tell me something, nobody would think twice that I'm going to call the grocery store manager and give an update.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing for cops. That's your job, nothing else. And so we're going to follow along just like the average person that comes in with what we can and can't release. It does not change anything just because of the badge that you wear on your uniform.
Absolutely.
So like old school snitches get stitches. You're not saying shit, is what
Nope.
you're saying.
Nope.
Go to the
I
grave.
think all of us on here may actually know
like
what
it.
bodies are.
I like
Manny,
it.
even if your wife calls, or let's say your wife is a client of our group, I can't even tell her when
No.
your appointment is.
No.
I can't even, if you were, and I have this, and we actually just redid our office to have separate exits because sometimes it may be awkward to see your friend in the waiting room. But like, let's say they're like, oh, I didn't know you saw blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yep.
Right? We don't even confirm that. We cannot confirm that. And if,
Right.
because a lot of times, especially I know for me being in this community, I live in it, I don't go to functions, or if I do and somebody comes up, I've had somebody come up and tell my husband at a fire that I saved their life. And he's like, I didn't know you saw this person. I'm like, of course you wouldn't know you saw this person. You're not supposed to know, right? And that's really important. Like, we don't share things with our family. Now, we may, just like you, share like, man, it was a kind of a tough day. Like, we just had a firefighter die this week in our community. Like, of course, those things are naturally going to come up just like any profession. But any licensed provider, not a coach, cannot say shit about you. And if that is happening and you're in a waiting room or you're in a meeting and they go, yeah, I just saw Johnny yesterday and man, his wife, oof, you can't do that.
Right.
Yeah. I've had clients hug in the lobby. Oh, I didn't, and they have opportunity to keep it private. They don't have to see each other. And then they'll walk in my room and go, I didn't know you saw so and so. And I have to smile and go, how was your week?
Right.
Even then I can't confirm.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly Navy SEAL shit. Top secret, 100% top secret shit. I love it. All right. So, I know, Allison, you had touched on that. The funny thing is that happened that's how Pistol actually got formed. Was I just happened to be going through the lobby and passed someone. So I don't disagree. I understand why that is there, but I can tell you that running into somebody, and it has happened to me on the streets, because we do the same with Pistol. If somebody sees me on the street with someone we're vetting and they're like, hey, you know so and so, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, we treat that exactly the same way. We put our uh our board on there. We mirrored it after your guys' policies, obviously, or your rules, even though we don't have to follow them. But we stick to that, and that was probably the number one thing, was anonymity. And I give people nickname. If I don't give you a nickname, I don't like you. So just consider that. So if you're in my phone and if anybody ever FOIA'd or did a search warrant on my phone, they're going to be like, who the hell is Pan Blanco? Who do you call white bread? Who? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, so let's Sierra 1, Katie.
Yes.
What they were talking about, this privilege thing. Can you kind of like expand on this?
Yeah, so we hear the term confidentiality a lot, right? We, as therapists, we have an obligation to keep people's information confidential, and anybody can promise confidentiality, right? Like your best friend can say, I'm going to hold this in confidence. The coach can say, yes, I promise to keep this in confidence. But confidentiality is an ethical term. It's not a legal term. The legal term is privilege. And so what that means is that when you see certain types of professionals, those conversations are legally privileged. And that was established by the federal court system forever ago. And they have identified 3 levels of privilege. There's doctor patient, which is going to expand to all healthcare professionals. So all of us, that's considered doctor patient privilege. Attorney client privilege, so your attorney, and spousal privilege, your husband or your wife. That's it. So that's at the federal level. Now, as I mentioned, some states have expanded that privilege to peer support teams. And what this means exactly is that the courts and judges place more of an emphasis on those types of communications, that they should not be released, that they can only be released under the most very special of circumstances. And only a judge gets to determine whether or not that can happen. So I'll give you the example. So if one of us gets a subpoena in the mail from an attorney and says, and it's, one of our clients was alleged, we're going to go with a DV situation, right? So one of our clients allegedly perpetrated domestic violence against their spouse. They learned that the officer, the firefighter, has been in treatment, and they want our records to show how aggressive this person is, and that they've always been this way. Well, unless we have our client's explicit written permission, all we have to do with this subpoena is say these records are privileged, and we have to still show up to court if it's actually in court. That just means that we show up with the records. We can't hand anything over. We have to act, the judge is the person that can say, okay. And what we call that is we call it asserting privilege on our client's behalf. And most of the time, a judge is going to uphold that privilege because of the importance that they place on these types of communications, right? Like there's a sanctity to it. So that's super important. And the reason that this is so important is number one, so like, let's say in the case of an officer involved shooting, happens every single day. That officer, right, what happens after an officer involved shooting, they go back to headquarters. All right, they're pulled aside from everybody else. They're sequestered. They can't talk to anyone. There's a reason for that. There's a legal reason for that, because those conversations can be subpoenaed, and I guarantee you they will be. And so, right, there's certain people that they can be talking to after an officer involved shooting, right? The attorney shows up right away. They go to their critical incident debriefing. That's a privileged conversation. And depending on the state peer supporters, but a lot of peer supporters are taught, like, Don't talk to me about what happened. Talk about your feelings, but don't tell me what happened. There's a reason for that. And one of the major reasons for that is that, like, for an officer involved shooting in particular, is that if there's a civil lawsuit against the officer, which any kind of use of force, that's a civil rights violation and automatically goes to the federal courts. And the federal courts are very persnickety about the application of privilege, and they don't care.
Did you say persnickety?
They're persnickety.
What does that mean?
Like
snooty?
Like particular.
Particular, yeah.
Yeah, but it's better. It's in our DSM. You wouldn't know, so it's just a bit.
That sounded like an insult.
Just a princess term. Know. Yeah.
I'm gonna use.
Well, and I'll give you an example too. Like another officer involved, like officer goes through an OIS. Prosecutor who's looking into it learns that the officer has been talking about what happened. Obviously they told their spouse. They've talked to a therapist. They've talked to like a career coach or a stress coach or something, and a couple of friends about it. So like if you go down the list here, every single person can be subpoenaed, of course. The spouse and the therapist can assert privilege on the officer's behalf and likely prevent the release of any of those communications. The peer supporter might be able to assert privilege depending on the state and the court of course, that it's being tried in. The coach and the friend are screwed. They're going to be obligated to share details.
Can we not recall?
A little plausible deniability. I mean, sure.
I mean, I don't know, just So,
I mean, your text messages might say something different.
Oh, you look. If you talk to me, I don't put anything in text. In fact, my treating two things, and I think it was either Brianna or Allison. I'm not sure, but two things. So my doctor that treated me and helped found pistol, she said, you should diary your feelings and your emotions. And I said, absolutely not. No. And she's like, well, maybe you got good stories. Maybe write a book. I'm like, absolutely not. I refuse to write anything down that'll be used against me later. That's one thing. But the most important thing that you were talking about, one of you, was the privilege between if I go see my licensed therapist or the licensed person, if my spouse isn't there, you cannot tell her what we talked about. Now, because I'm the fool that's going to test that theory, I didn't know that when I went to see my doctor. And so when she told me that, I had already been seeing her for like probably about 3 months. And my wife would say, how'd it go? And I'm like, nah, whatever. I didn't really say much. And then she told me that. And I made the mistake of, and Lauren knows my wife very well, of telling my wife, hey, if you're not there, you'll never know what I told her. Well, that was the last time that I ever saw a therapist by myself, just so you know. So my opinion is keep your mouth shut. Don't tell your spouse those rules. Just plain.
Well, I've had spouses reach out to me to give information about my clients. I can't even respond to the spouse without their explicit written permission of my client. I'll take information in. I will tell my client that they gave me the info, but I can't even respond.
Right.
Yeah, so I've had parents of responders reach out and say, I'm worried about my person, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what are you even working on? And I'm like, I can't respond to you.
Yeah.
We can get information, right? We've had people send, I know I have, and probably the ladies have had people send us information, like a wife or a spouse saying, hey, just so you know, like if they're telling you they're not drinking, they're lying or something. And we can't, one, I'm never going to break the confidentiality and respond. But two, I'm going to approach the subject with my client with curiosity. I don't want to call out the spouse and say, your spouse is a snitch, because we don't know the full situation going on at home, right? We don't want to put somebody in danger. But it is quite interesting what the things that we get told or people are like, just so you know. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Right.
I like it. I like it a lot. So what you're saying is, if I'm understanding, only share this information with the people that have licenses.
Yeah.
Right.
With the alphabet soup. If they have alphabet soup, more than likely you're okay.
That's
And
safe.
if you choose not to do so, at your own risk.
Right.
And look up the alphabet soup, because many life coaches and other I think intending people have initials. There's one in particular I just looked up and I'm like, what are these initials? That looks very official. But it was not a license. So verify what those mean. And again, we'll provide a link at the end of this that you can look at to look up what licenses there are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. I know it's hard to believe, but I did send away and I became a pastor. So if anyone needs to be married, I can do that for you for a nominal fee if you donate to pistol.com. Okay, so what about and I'm not sure, maybe all of you can chime in as far as like, you know, what you guys do with the insurance and the diagnosis, the claims, the compensation, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. If you are using insurance, you have to have a diagnosis. That's one of the requirements of insurance for anybody at all. A competent and well-trained first responder clinician is going to, and this should be any client anyway, is going to discuss the diagnosis with you because it can interfere with health insurance, life insurance, higher clearance jobs if you're with the government, and we'll go for the least stigmatizing diagnosis possible. But if you're using insurance, there does have to be a diagnosis. We do have an obligation. The only place where your records are able to be shared is, like Katie said, if there's a court order that we can't fight, or if you are going for a workman's comp case, and if you're using insurance, they're entitled to your diagnosis. They're also entitled to look at your treatment notes. Again, a well-trained and ethical clinician who isn't doing an evaluation on you is going to keep that in mind when they do your progress notes. I'm being very careful about what I write in there to protect my clients should they ever be subpoenaed and court ordered to be released. So that's something to also ask about, and you're entitled to your notes. Federal law gives you ownership over all of your clinical notes with any mental health or health provider, and you can have them at any time, and they're supposed to be provided timely. So my clients are allowed to ask, what did you write in there? Can I take a look at that? Did you give me a diagnosis? If you're coming in under self-pay, no diagnosis is required. In Arizona, we do have Craig-Tiger Act. That doesn't require a diagnosis. And nobody receives, like I said, a diagnosis or your notes or any information about you.
EAPs also don't require diagnosis, and depending on EAPs, and I know some people are bad taste in their mouth, which I don't disagree, but some are pretty good. And if the clinicians can work with them to, if a department has an EAP that the clinician can get on and then funnel the referrals through them so that the officer or the responder can get free services using their EAP, it's one heck of an amazing service to be able to do, and we don't have to give a diagnosis for the EAP for almost all of them.
Allison, do you take EAP?
Absolutely.
I've asked you that. There's a note about EAP, a warning. For many departments, EAP pays such a low rate that unless you have an amazing clinician like Allison who will take EAP,
Yep.
you're going to get a very green, very inexperienced, not specialist provider a lot of the time. So please, a lot of people jump to their EAP because it's free and it's easy and it's fast. Vet the clinician.
Yeah, I would agree. Our rates suck. They absolutely are terrible. I make nothing from them after I pay everything out. But it's a service, and our mission is to serve, and I would rather eat the costs than somebody have $100 bill that they can't afford and they're gonna
Yeah.
go kill themselves.
That's where
So.
we might be able to step in and help.
Well, with our Arizona folks, absolutely. In Ohio, we don't have pistol. We don't have the Tiger Act. We don't have anything like that. We actually don't even have PTSD for workers' comp. So it's
Wow.
great.
And I know
So-
like all of my clinicians will actually do automatic cash pay discounts. So if you're a first
Yeah.
responder or military and you don't want to use insurance, just to eliminate that entirely, we automatically, for them, their spouse and their children, do automatic cash pay discount, because then they don't have to have the diagnosis and the fear of life insurance policies and things like that going down the line. So a lot of first responder clinicians try and offer different things if you don't want to go through insurance, because we understand that stigma that still is tied to it, or some of the repercussions that could come from it.
Yeah, so Manny, if you could talk a little bit about Pistol's mission and our broad-reaching mission to help first responders.
Yeah, actually, I was going to touch on that, Allison. So you actually, we will scholarship, and we have scholarship for first responders all over the world. And I say that because we've helped Canadian officers. Melbourne, Australia came out. Iowa, So if you, and I know that's a whole nother subject, if you do the referral or you don't or whatever, but I usually put out on the platforms that, look, if you're in another state, Pistol, if we have the ability, we will cover if they meet the qualifications. So
Okay.
don't feel like that's not an option. Feel free to have them reach out. We've helped people. Like I said, we helped 4 officers throughout Iowa, LAPD, NYPD, LASO, LAPD. And that's part of it's taken us quite a long time in building a relationship. Where I grew up in West Phoenix, it wasn't ever about money. Your friendships were built on respect and trust.
Yeah.
And when people betray that, that's when you lose it. So we didn't care if you were rich or poor. We cared if you had respect and honored your friendship. So once we build these bridges, and Lauren can attest to that, Katie can. I haven't seen Katie in probably a year and a half, 2 years, and I see her and it's like we picked up right where we left off. So I can't extend enough to you or express enough to you that if you have an officer or a first responder, we do corrections, we're getting into paramedics, you can have them reach out to us, and we will work out getting them the help that they need. Now, granted, we don't have millions, but we are not limited by how many times we can help. As long as we have funding coming in, we will do everything we can to help. Dave and I and Nick, when we first started, put our own money into it. So don't feel like you don't have Pistol out there. You do. If you reach out or they reach out, we will do our best to get them help.
Absolutely amazing that you're doing that. And I know there's some other organizations around here. We do have some funding sources to help. And there are some national ones, but I just appreciate everything that you said because like I said, our state's been in a very interesting spot. A few years ago, PTSD, like I said, got taken off as primary for workers' comp. And I know we're gonna get in here in a minute into workers' comp and FMLA stuff, but it has to be secondary now to an injury. So you get shot, you fall through a floor, and then you have PTSD, you can get it. We can get it for anxiety or depression, but we can't do it for PTSD. And again, we know probably 20 to 30% really actually have PTSD, and then the others are other things. But I absolutely like Lauren. We take EAP because that's been our way to destigmatize mental health and also change the EAP culture. And then we train others so that they can get those services for them and their whole entire family.
Right. And I think somebody, you want to talk about work comp? So fuck work comp. That's what I say. Every single one of them.
Yeah, no, it's like I deal with it. We have lots of clients in our practice who are being seen under workers' compensation benefits. And I tell you what, it's super fun to chase claims adjusters and wait 6 months to get paid. But not a lot of people are willing to do it. Kind of like EAP. I won't do EAP, but I'll suck it up and deal with work comp. But a lot of states, unfortunately for Allison in Ohio, they don't allow industrial injuries with primary PTSD, but a lot of states do. And we're seeing rates increase across the board. I mean, a lot of agencies, if you are, if an exposure to a critical incident, they'll say fill out a claim form so that, you can get paid and you can get treatment covered. The downside to that is number one, once you file an industrial claim, confidentiality kind of goes out the door. So those records, those notes go to the claims examiner and your treatment has to be related to the actual industrial injury. Which is complicated with mental health because we talk about all sorts of things. But a competent clinician will know how to write the notes in such a way. The other thing is that, again, there's only certain professionals that can treat and diagnose. So mental health professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, right? Anybody with a healthcare license can diagnose and treat. And so right at that point, you need to be cautious about who you're selecting, and also understanding, I testify in industrial hearings relatively often, whether it's for a client of mine that I see in therapy or for an evaluation that I did. And so you also want to pick somebody that can present your case and speak in a court and be willing to work with your lawyers and understand how that whole process works. And similarly, when we talk about medical retirements, some states allow medical retirements for PTSD. And there's a very specific, in Arizona, right, procedure that has to be followed. And you have to really show that you've actually been getting treatment for a bit and that you've tried to work on healing before a retirement board will accept that.
Right.
So if you're seeing a coach every week and talking, there's going to be no diagnosis. There's not going to be any record. That doesn't count. And I've had that happen before where I evaluated somebody for medical retirement. And at that point, I couldn't recommend them despite the fact that, you know, they certainly had PTSD, but they hadn't done treatment. Not at least as it is defined. And so that was really, it set the officer back a whole year. And it shouldn't have.
Speaking on that real quick, having a culturally competent clinician, I had a client who I have seen where someone goes for a medical retirement due to an injury on the job. And because they were diagnosed with PTSD by a clinician who didn't tell them they had that diagnosis and didn't have cultural competency training with first responders, they didn't file their workman's comp claim within the year of that diagnosis. And that closed the window for a workman's comp case because you have 1 year to act on the diagnosis, at least in Arizona. And so not going to a culturally competent therapist, you risk something like that as well.
Right. So there is something that, and we don't have to get into it. I mean, I'll let you gals decide. One of the things that I remember very specifically asking my doctor was if this happens, right? If they find out that I'm going through this struggle and I get put on desk duty or light duty like they put me on, are these mofos going to take my gun and badge? Are they going to say that I'm not competent enough to carry the gun while I'm being treated or whatever the case may be, whether it's work comp? Did you guys want to, is that something you guys want to address?
Yeah, we'll dabble a little bit into it because it can vary a little bit by state. But for us, that was always the motto. You tell somebody you're struggling or suicidal, your gun is your badge and gun are gone and you're off the truck. And what I can stand here and by my pastor here, gracefully say is we've been able to debunk that and get people treatment. Yes, if you have a high acuity and you're suicidal and you have a plan and intent and you go inpatient, you're not going to have a weapon on you. Sorry, you can't take it with you. But at an appropriate time and when, we're like, okay, let's reintegrate. We've been able to get people back with their gun back on the truck, back to the job. There are different reportings according to each state on some of those things, and that is again going to be state specific. But would you all agree that's kind of been now the wave change we've been able to help demystify?
Yeah, I agree. Going to therapy isn't going to get your gun and badge yanked. Even being suicidal isn't going to get your gun and badge yanked because that's not, your department isn't going to hear about it. Going inpatient won't even do that necessarily because I can't tell your department that you went inpatient. I can't even tell your wife or your husband.
Right. Well, and again, so like going back to me, I was never suicidal. I remember telling my doctors and the IME, I said, I'm not suicidal. I like myself. I just hate everyone else. And I actually had a target. And I remember telling a few of the doctors I saw, I have a plan and I will murder that person when I see him. They never took my gun away. Like, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm actively telling them that this is what's going on. I did have one doctor. I don't think she's a doctor, whatever. But, you know, she said, you can't have a gun in my office. And the one thing that you don't want to tell a police officer is that they can't have a gun or they can't have something because we're going to go get it and just to piss you off. So that, again, I know we had discussed that. And it came to mind about that. Like, am I getting booted off the rig? Am I going to, because we tell each other everything. You got to remember when we're in the squad car with a partner, these guys know when we shit, right? And they know we'll take pictures and send it to them. So it's not uncommon for us to look and and say, you know, this is going on or that's going on. So that's why, you know, that's why I asked about the
Yeah.
big,
It's a
huge fear.
culturally competent therapist is not going to, I have clients come in uniform. I have clients come with
Right.
their weapons. They are not going to ask you to leave it in the trunk.
Yeah.
No.
Well, yeah. Well, I was the guy that, and Lauren's gonna smile because she knows what I'm gonna say. But like when the clinic or when the doctor, whatever she was, told me I couldn't have my gun, I just unholstered it and put it on her desk in the lobby.
I have two in my office.
So
I mean, it's two of my
so
very own.
This
yeah.
goes
So
back to though
as
that culturally competent. Do they understand what you're doing for a living? And if they have issues with you bringing a gun into their office, they probably aren't really the right clinician for you
Right.
because that's your world. So
Part of our interview questions in any therapist I hire is how comfortable are you with a weapon
Yeah.
in the office? And if they're not, then they are not going to be hired.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
You're-
the one that retired me, and I think Katie knows this story, and I know Lauren does for sure. And I just told Brianna, but the doctor, she was a doctor. She was wearing Louboutins with a very expensive purse, and the first 2.5 minutes, she stopped writing and looked at me and said, "Do you always cuss this much?"
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, we're here." So, you know, that's it's not very comforting to know that you have to kind of not be yourself. But
Mm.
as we come up to this closure, and I appreciate your time, I know you all are very, very busy. Sierra 1 has not talked much, so, and I want to pick on the FNG, but Sierra 1 is pretty quiet. So do you have anything in closing, Katie?
I feel like I've been talking a lot.
What?
No, not enough.
What are you talking about?
Oh my God.
You're the squad lead.
Yeah.
So I will say, number one, it is in any officer or firefighter's best interest to seek help early on. For the right, like if you seek help early on before symptoms manifest and they start disrupting your personal life or work, no, your gun's not going to get taken away because you're handling your shit. It becomes a problem when you don't deal with your shit and you stuff it down for years, and then all of a sudden you're having panic attacks at work. You're hyper vigilant and you're getting into multiple use of forces that you shouldn't be. That's when it becomes a problem, and that's when you might get your gun taken away because the department's going to send you for a fit for duty or something at that point. And so, like it, my advice to officers and departments, I make a lot of money off fit for duties, but I would prefer that people actually get help and not be sent to me. Get help early on. That would be my closing thoughts. And I think Brianna kind of wanted to share a couple of, just to kind of like wrap us all up a little bit.
yeah, it's going to come down to honestly touching on that. Get the help sooner rather than later. Earlier in your career, because you can minimize the potential for PTSD down the line if you learn how to manage your shit from day one, because the job's going to change you. A lot of them go in, not married, get married, have kids, didn't have kids. All of that stuff changes over the course of the time. But when you start looking for that clinician, don't give up if it's not the right fit from day one, but look for the ones that are truly going to understand. Interview, research, ask your buddies at the department. I know there is some people that don't want to talk about it as taboo, but there's some that will freely like, yep, I saw this person, they sucked. I saw this person, they were amazing. I saw this person, they helped with this, but not with this. Look at their styles. Some of us are more direct, some are more tame, some are more in your face, some are not. Like, you really want to match. It's like dating. It's going to suck sometimes because you don't find your partner day one, but you can find them. And when you build that rapport, that person's going to be with you, and they can be your dumping ground. They can be your safe space, whether it's job related or not. So researching, if you look on the board to see if they have anything on there against them, don't take that at face value. Dig into the person a little bit more, because oftentimes the one thing I learned working at the department myself, most people that did their job well as officers ended up in IA at some point in time.
A lot.
The officers that weren't doing their true jobs and really fighting a lot of times flew under the radar, so they never were in trouble.
They were lieutenants.
They
were lieutenants.
They had to work their way up, but yeah,
Right.
they're the ones that never got in trouble. So if you're never pushing boundaries and you're never fighting for your clients, we have to a lot of times help fight for the officers because nobody else is wanting to listen to what they're struggling with. And so you want somebody that's going to have your back. And that means sometimes that people don't like us, but the ones that are in it for the right reason are still going to keep fighting for the right reasons to help the officers to move forward. So finding your person may not happen the first clinician, but don't give up and just keep pushing and make sure they're licensed, because even if you start and it's just basic anxiety, not job related, doesn't mean it doesn't turn into job related and more intense. And now you have to either restart with somebody new, which most people don't want to, or you risk that privilege being not available, confidentiality mandate, all of that can come up. So just start from license to begin with.
Well,
Beautiful.
I love it. The FNG comes through. I love it. So, ladies, I cannot express to you how humbled and proud I am to be able to know you. Allison, today is our first time seeing each other. But if you're in this company, you definitely are the Delta force of mental health, and you should get pins for that, or guns. But like I said, I cannot thank each of you enough for bringing this to my attention. Well, I mean, it was our attention, but wanting to come on the podcast. I know you're all very, very busy. I learned about my feelings through mental health or going through this, and it's okay to have feelings. Sometimes I get emotional. But as I tell you the truth, you ladies are truly my heroes for putting up with all the first responders you see, working as hard as you do, and really digging in. So from me to you, each and every one of you, love you guys. Look forward to doing more stuff. I believe Sierra One owes me coffee because I bought last time. We will make that happen. Anybody have anything before we call it?
Thanks for putting this together, Manny, and hosting us.
No, thank you. Thank you. And Allison, please do not hesitate to reach out if you need to. I know there's plenty of organizations out there, but we're still here, and we'll do whatever we can.
You just better be ready.
Okay? Hey, we've been in existence 10 years. I don't look, Lauren and Brianna, and I think Katie they gave me access to that clinicians page. I'm very hesitant to post there because I post bad stuff, but I do read it, and I do read a lot of the stuff, and I'm very good at following the questions and researching the therapists across the nation. And some of them do get a little bit, it's very hard for me not to chime in. Let's just put it that way. But like I said, I do appreciate it. We'll do it again. And hopefully at some point we can do it in person. Like I said, I just can't thank you gals enough. You guys are truly, truly my heroes.
Thank you, Manny.
Oh,
all right,
Manny.
you guys have a wonderful day, and thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Much love.